All right, Who Killed WCW is live on the air. I am Andrew Badal. That's Corey Saunders. That's Hugh Springsteen. And that is Ellis Emba. Episode 2 is in the books, and we're going to review it. I'm going to turn it over to the host for tonight, and that is Corey Saunders. What's up, Corey?
Yo, what's going on? Pleasure to take the wheel and drive a little bit. So, guys, let's just jump right into it. So, they opened the show. They recapped last week. Now, if you all that joined us last week, we appreciate you. If you're new here this week, appreciate you for that as well. We do this every week. We're covering every episode of Who Killed WCW. Last week, we got when they pretty much kind of gave an introduction, you guys, that they showed Eric Bischoff's ascending into the reins of pretty much running WCW, and they covered the hiring of Hulk Hogan and the formation of the NWO, which included the introduction of Scott Hall and Kevin Nash into the company, and kind of having it so it looked like they were coming right from the WWF, and they were coming in as WWF guys, and they were coming to take over WCW. And, it came to a point where it almost could have gotten WCW into a little trouble, and they had to kind of weasel it into the storyline, but have them also say, hey, we don't work for the WWF. The NWO was formed. They're off on a rocket, and they're gone. 83 weeks straight, they're beating WWF in the ratings. That's pretty much what last week's show was about, guys. It was pretty much the introduction, and we get to this week's show, and it kind of focuses on, you start with the NWO, and you get the formation, not the formation, you get the introduction of Goldberg. WCW is not coasting, but they've reached their somewhat of a peak of what they could do with the NWO, and they need something new, and boom, you get to Goldberg. Juice, I'm going to go to you first as Mr. WCW. That introduction of Goldberg, was that something that was needed, you think?
Absolutely. First and foremost, got the Starcade 98 shirt for this
There you
appropriate
go. There you
occasion.
go.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So this, as a WCW guy, the first episode was great. The second episode, I'm already getting depressed seeing what's coming, what happened, the ascension of Goldberg, and then how they had nothing for him once they were like, you know what, it's time to take the title off of him. A lot of interesting things in this episode. We got Bret Hart, Nash, who is lying and telling the truth at the same time, the best politician in the history of professional wrestling. So we'll talk about all that, of course, but I think you can't talk about WCW without talking about Goldberg, who arguably was their biggest star that they created homegrown in the power plant, being trained by Buddy Lee Parker, and just ascended to the ranks. Like they made him seem, people will compare him to Steve Austin. I think that's unfair just because he was bald, black trunks, black boots. But Kevin Sullivan gave him the Mike Tyson kind of presentation, which I never really looked at or saw it that way, which I think is clear. And that's exactly how it was. I think it was a coincidence that him and Austin had, similar parallels there. But I don't think you could talk about WCW good, bad, or in between without talking about Goldberg. So let's get into it.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I'm going to throw this question to you, Ellis. You can always backtrack to what we were talking about with the introduction of Goldberg, but I want to throw this to you because in the midst of all of that, as Goldberg's ascending, we're in 1998, late 97, going into 98. Bret Hart is hired, and we're getting the introduction of WCW Thunder. WCW Thunder was their second set of programming in a primetime slot, and we're starting to get that situation where they're feeling like this is a lot of programming coming on. Eric Bischoff had said that he didn't think it would work, but he wasn't going to tell Ted Turner no. And he said that was probably a mistake by him. You think he should have. What did you think, Ellis, as far as and I know that's going back a little bit, and just from a business standpoint, what did you think the introduction of Thunder meant as far as maybe oversaturation? Can y'all hear Ellis?
Ellis, I don't think we can hear you, buddy.
I bet you can't hear me. It's called me being on mute when I eat my munchies. You know what I'm saying? I can't be crunching on the audio. Okay. But my question I was asking a while was when did SmackDown debut?
SmackDown
99.
had their pilot in April of 99 and debuted officially in August of 99.
And when did Thunder debut?
I believe Thunder was January of 98.
January. Yeah, 98.
Okay.
Yep.
So I don't know, guys. So during that time frame, I was watching Thunder in Paradise. I didn't really have too many thoughts around. If you know, Thunder in Paradise is a deep cut. Pretty sure everyone else knows about that show. But it did it feel like saturation at the time? To be honest with you, no. It didn't. It didn't feel like too much wrestling. It felt like extra wrestling. And you're a kid. Yay. But business sense, again, the gentleman said it well. I should have said no. He should have said no. Because, again, if you look at the operating model, he didn't have the right operating model, right, in place to have those shows. Again, people ask, well, why did the brand split happen with WWE? I'm bringing them up on this show, sorry. But if you think about that, right, because that was a smart strategy to not oversaturate the viewer. You're getting more wrestling, but you're not putting stress on the roster or on storylines. So it's a good idea. I'm sorry, I'm getting the graphics, but check it out though. At the end of the day, it was at the time. It was, even though wrestling fans yay, business sense no. It was a poor decision, and again, the man said it, and it's great. To me, that's what makes these documentaries great, right? You get the retrospect. You know, again, even though he said he would do the exact same thing because he's happy with the outcome of his life, he can still say, "I made a mistake," and that's one dope part about watching these documentaries.
You know, it's funny. It's funny you bring that up because I think we get a lot of things, and we speak a lot in hindsight when we go back and look at these documentaries these days. And yes, in hindsight, to me, that it seems like an oversaturation. But as a 14-year-old kid, I'm looking at it, I'm getting more wrestling, and WCW was hot at the time. So I agree. At that point in time, in 98, you're not thinking of it as an oversaturation. You're just looking at it as more wrestling. And for them, it's the reason for the introduction of Thunder in the first place. It's more money. WCW is doing so well with Nitro. It's more money at this point. It's more, eyes on the product, as you could say. With this, and I'm going to throw this to you, Drew. With this, also, like I said, Bret Hart is just hired. And Eric talks about how with Thunder, they needed another star because they didn't want to have so much of the same talent on the same shows twice and trying to book that. We get Bret Hart, and immediately when I heard him talking about that, it almost seemed like they were trying to make Bret Hart almost the star of Thunder. And I threw this to you because I thought of when Punk was being reintroduced back into AEW when they introduced Collision. I thought of the same thing. Did you see any parallels with that at all?
First of all, I think the whole Thunder is the reason why WCW failed is a complete cop out. WWE produces so many hours of television, and this was the one thing that I saw in this documentary that I was like, give me a fucking break. Eric Bischoff is sitting back being like, oh, I should have told Ted Turner, no, you did what you were told to do and what we were supposed to do. The product was white hot. WWE was producing 7 hours. Now WCW is asked to do 10. I get it. But when Bischoff and Nash said that we went from doing this to doing that and diluting the product, I thought this was the biggest cop out because realistically your product was white hot. Let them, the guys who are writing the checks and the girls who are writing the checks from Turner and everywhere else, if they want to maximize their potential return, this is what they saw. And WCW had an insanely loaded roster. I mean, it was insanely long. They could have done so much with Thunder. It's about poor execution. That's all it was about Thunder. Thunder was poor execution. They had no storylines that went from Nitro to Thunder. I shouldn't say no. There were a couple of them, but it really wasn't a A show and a B show that had the same storylines weaving and woven into each other. It just didn't happen.
It was more of an elevated Saturday night.
Right. And Bret Hart coming over, you could have had Bret be the face of Thunder, which Eric said he wanted Bret to do.
Yeah.
But realistically, that didn't really happen either. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Even if my problem with that statement saying like, and I don't know if, I guess he thought of it then, but him saying it now, like Thunder was created because Bret Hart needed a spot. Like, this is how we're going to anchor it. Okay, but like, who else? You can't just do it with one guy. He can only wrestle one guy a week. He can only have one storyline at a time. Like,
they had
to start
6
off by
NWOs.
saying one guy is insane. You had plenty of other things to tap into.
Yeah.
Yes, plenty of things to tap into by the end of '97 that you could have had Thunder flourish. And I agree with you, Drew. I wouldn't say it's the reason. I think it is like kind of a cop out. It's what Ella said. It's extra. It was nice to see. You know,
when WWF launched SmackDown,
it's in retrospect where people say that.
When WWF launched SmackDown,
like
when WWF launched SmackDown, did you see anybody throw their arms up and be like, "That's it, we can't. 10 hours is too much"? No, WCW gained Vince Russo, the Golden Goose, according to everybody else, and we saw how that turned out. But what I'm saying is
see that
if you go
episode.
back, right? If you go back and look at this, like first of all, Eric and everybody on this will have a completely different perspective because they are light years ahead of us in terms of the wrestling game. We're all consumers and fans. That's what we are at the end of the day. Some of us are opinionists, journalists, whatever. But at the end of the day, Eric's opinion and my opinion, Ellis's opinion, and Corey and Juice's are never going to be the same. And if you're looking for a firsthand recollection of what happened, that's where you go. We're looking at this from the fans and the consumer's perspective. And everybody here said it. 14 years old, I was excited. You were excited. The guy across the street was excited. The execution of Thunder is not a reason why WCW failed. It's poor planning by Eric Bischoff and the writing team, who ended up passing everything to Kevin Nash. But we'll get into that.
Yes, we will. And that's a great point that you all brought up because I look at it like this. We're on one side of the television set and they're on the other side of the television set. We're getting the output of what we're seeing, of what they're producing, and they're seeing the reaction of what we're watching from their product. So that's a great way of putting that. And two things that y'all brought up, and it was in my notes that I talked about when I was looking at the show. They talked about how all of a sudden they started going to, like you all mentioned, the 10 hours of TV that they were doing Nitro on Monday, 2 house shows, then Thunder, then you've got a pay-per-view. And they were all really worried about that. And that's when Bischoff was alluding to the overexposure. And it was so funny when Drew said there were 6 NWOs. That was literally my next note, was they talked about the branching off of, you had NWO Hollywood, which is the black and white. You had NWO Wolfpack, which is the black and red. You had the LWO. You had, you had so many iterations of
the
things.
Horsemen.
Yeah, and you had the Horsemen at that time. Like there were so many. WCW was never short of factions, and that's through the years.
To be fair, though, I do believe some of the pieces that we've mentioned, NWO Wolfpack, I think the LWO, I think they came a little bit later into '98 after Thunder had been established. So it wasn't that they were established already, but by the time they were established, you could have just said, okay, all the Wolfpack guys, or split the rosters. How many times we talk about that these days? You have so much talent, and all they said was, look at all this money we gave to the talent. Then use the talent on other shows. You have them.
Yeah, great point, Juice. Here's all this money. Now you guys got to work. We don't want to work. We just want to collect this fat check from Turner. That's what happened. I mean, come on. Who wants to write 10 hours of television? I mean, I get it. Trust me, I get it. But I mean, those boys and girls wanted to collect their checks, drink their beers, brother at the bar, and go home. That's it. And I don't blame them.
No.
Ellis, were you about to say something?
Our boy Blake has put a comment out that I fully agree with. Again, I tried not to just look at the show, right? I mean, the question that was posed to me, I mean, I'm going to give you my answer as a child, but the reality is that it was still a poor business decision. We can't forget the fact that the head of the network went to someone and asked another random ass question, when in reality they should not have done it. It's again, I get it. I get it. We now say a brand split is possible, but that's way after the fact that it was initially introduced. When that was first introduced as an idea, people hated that shit. People were against the brand split. People thought it was done. Now we think, oh, dude, we should all just do that. It's again, WWE were in a situation where they can risk doing that kind of stuff and still be able to produce a ton of content all over the place.
Right.
And at that time frame, we're in a unique time, right, where the internet is AOL, which is really crazy, right? You didn't go in your Internet Explorer. You were stuck in a certain ecosystem, and you were given certain abilities to do stuff digitally. So we can't even think about that as an option, right? We have so much available to us, and again, we're not even looking at the fact that the Turner executives did not want this to happen. They didn't want anything else extra. They wanted it dead.
Ted was the only guy that wanted anything. He loved WCW more than even me.
If you think about it, Ellis, you were a big WWF guy at the time, watching SmackDown, watching Raw. The WWF did a really good job of storyline continuation from Raw to SmackDown and then even to pay-per-views and sometimes Sunday Night Heat. WCW didn't do that. Thunder could have worked if they wrote Thunder to bleed into Nitro. They didn't.
No.
It was a problem that popped up that they weren't prepared for. Like if Bischoff had been even given, 6 months, maybe even a year, hey, some point down the line, we have all this talent. We're giving them all this money. We're doing great. Business can't be hotter. Maybe we should give you a new show to, make it spread out a little bit. And you can get some guys here, some guys there. You don't see everybody every week, and the fans might be happier. If you have that ahead of time, maybe you set up a creative team that can handle it instead of just going, let's do it right now, end of the year, let's go. And then you have nothing. And it's tough. Tough stuff.
Juice, you got to get out of my brain, because I literally was thinking that just now, that if they could get to a point, it's a selling venture that you could do with that. You're not getting Goldberg every week on Nitro, or you may get Goldberg on Thunder. You can only see him at Thunder. Thunder is going to be here in Louisville, Kentucky on such and such date. That's the date you're going to be able to see Goldberg. But the next time Nitro is in town, you're not going to see Goldberg. So you're taking that venture to where you're splitting the roster, like you're saying. You're only going to get ABC XYZ on Nitro. You're only going to get ABC XYZ on Thunder. They could have made this to where they could have made both shows to a point where fans had to choose, much like what WWE was trying to do in later years when they split their roster. They were trying to make you choose what brand were you going to be loyal to.
Corey, that's a great
point. They
point.
kind of did that with the NWO. Like people love the NWO, even though it was supposed to be the anti-WCW. If you create a show like that, and it's just Thunder, it's not the NWO show, then you can have people organically do that, and it's still your programming at the end of the day.
Yep.
Juice and Corey, you both the historians. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Flair was running WCW storyline-wise towards the end of 98 into 1999. So hindsight being 2020, why couldn't you have Bischoff run Thunder and Flair run Nitro? I mean, I understand Eric was very innovative, but I think there was an opportunity that was very much missed with Thunder and Nitro. They could have had Thunder be the NWO show for everybody cared, because everybody wanted to see the NWO anyway. And Nitro had so much equity at that point. Even the botches that happened, Nitro still drew fives in the ratings back in 99 and 98. And they still were selling out buildings, 13, 18, 30,000 people. This Thunder did not kill WCW.
No, not at all. And so we're going to get back to Goldberg here, because I wanted to touch on something that I think Juice mentioned. Goldberg. It was originally, everybody kind of thought, oh, he's the knockoff Steve Austin, like you said, bald head, black boots, black trunks, goatee, all. But Kevin Sullivan talked about how we were going towards the Mike Tyson look with the short black boots and the trunks. And this question is going to be for everybody, and I'm going to start with Ellis first. Goldberg running through everybody. Do you think that was the way that he should have been booked to begin with? I know it's hindsight, but really looking back at that back then, do you think that was the answer? Just he said, he talked about how People loved watching him run through everybody. Were you one of those people that loved watching him run through everybody?
Oh, that's me. He looked like Mike Tyson. I thought you were going to ask that fucking question. And I was about to give you an answer you were going to expect. I really thought you would ask that question. So the question you asked me was it the right move for him to run through everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you this.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I enjoyed it. I enjoy streaks. I enjoy watching Oscar.
Do you now?
I did. But I'm like, let me keep it real. I enjoyed Oscar's run. I wish Oscar never lost. Though I wish she never faced Charlotte because I put too much respect on Charlotte's name. But I love when you say that someone is so unbeatable or they work so hard that they stay unbeatable. I love that. It's about how you tell the story. And I think at that time we were all so hyped. Also, like, we're full of shit. I'm gonna say this real quick. Well, a lot of us are full of shit. And we're like this, oh, I love in-depth storylines. I've been watching the storylines since I was 4 years old. Bullshit, bitch. You didn't even know what the fuck Ultimate Warrior said during his promo during WrestleMania. The motherfucker tried to kill people, and we were like, yeah. So all that bullshit about like, oh, we listened to the story. You watched the action, you watched the spectacle. You wanted someone to get smashed up, and you wanted to do the suck it sign in school. I have a reason to do that. That's what life was about. So when we talk about Goldberg killing everyone, that was dope as hell. It was short. It gave us what we wanted, the dopamine that we needed, and we were satisfied. And if you say anything other than that, then you full of shit. You are thinking like you are this age when you were younger. You are not. Okay, it hit the demographic the right way, and it to me was awesome. The problem is, okay. The problem is, you just can't kill everybody. Again, because I didn't know. Like, I didn't know. I'm not sure if you guys knew. I knew wrestling wasn't real. But guess what? Right. I didn't know he was really killing Bammers. I didn't know he was really killing motherfuckers. Did you guys know that shit? I didn't know he was really killing people. Like I thought the spear would be in. I didn't know he was actually tackling people out their bodies. That's not okay. So that's where I got a problem with. I didn't know that he was actually hurting Bammers until the whole Bret Hart thing happened. I had no idea. No clue.
Understandable. Juice, go for it. You think Goldberg was a good move to run through everybody?
Let's start with this little fun fact.
Uh-oh.
There I am.
Look at that.
And Goldberg's not even, his eyes are closed. That's probably how he looked in most of his matches, going through what he has to do next.
With a giant lip in his mouth, too.
That's right. I was a huge Goldberg fan. Again, I'm younger than you guys, but I was 5-6 years old at the peak of his run. And him just mowing people down, it was exciting. It was easy for me to understand because it was a 2-3 minute match. And it was just, I can't say anything other than it was exciting. And as a fan of WCW at a young age, that's all I needed. Like Alice said, I'm not paying attention to the storylines. The only storyline I could pay attention to was that Sting was in the darkness, in the shadows, and he was eventually going to go against Hulk Hogan because he was the bad guy. Because oddly enough, I grew up with Hulk Hogan being the bad guy. I didn't grow up with red and yellow. I grew up with Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
That is amazing. And I had to,
so I had to retroactively see the Hulkamania rise. And I can look at that fondly because I never got tired of it because I never was introduced to that. But Goldberg, his ascension and everything was just so crazy and hot. And of course it did work, even with hindsight, on Jay Leno, on these shows. And I will give credit. Hulk Hogan, even though he was not on this doc, Bischoff said the story. The fact that Hogan goes, look, I think it's time, and says, let's do it, Georgia Dome. I'll put him over clean. We all know how difficult it has to be for that doesn't work for me, brother, to say I'm going to put him over in his hometown for a huge show. However, I think it should have been on pay-per-view.
We're going to get to that. Save that. He's running on all of my cylinders, and I love it. Drew, go ahead. What'd you think of Goldberg?
Ellis hit on it 100%. I mean, Bill was that guy. Bill came out with no fluff in the beginning. Then all of a sudden he got fireworks and the pyro and the brother and everything else like that. But at the end of the day, if you didn't like what Goldberg was doing, I don't know if you really like professional wrestling. Goldberg came in, beat the shit out of people, got out of the ring. And it was what? Maybe a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And that's a lot of kids and some adults attention span at that time. So, and still today. So it worked. Goldberg was an enigma. Goldberg was somebody that was easy to relate with, and people wanted to see Goldberg. Juice brought up the Hogan thing, which we'll get into, but Goldberg's meteoric rise and how they booked it, I think was A1. And Goldberg was not beating mainstays. I mean, when he got to like 120 or something like that, I think he won his US championship at that point. And then when he got to 170 or something, it was the world title. So he had 100 victories from Johnny Pencil Dick, on Nitro before he got to the big boys.
Yeah, he and I want to say, I think he was 106 or 10. I mean, he was in the 80s or 90s when he won the U.S. title. I think it was 106 or 107 when he won the.
And who did he beat?
Against,
he beat like
Raven.
Beat Raven.
Raven, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so
and then he had to beat Hall before he had to beat Hogan. So he was going through people as he ascended, tougher guys other than your.
But that number on his first. Yeah, that number was so inflated. They were talking house show numbers and all this other stuff, and it was what it was. It was all the gimmick, and it was all the aura of Goldberg. I dug it. I absolutely dug it.
Yeah, and I'll jump in on that. That at that time, watching that, it was such a stark difference to what you were seeing on WWF at the time, and it's not a negative thing or anything. It was just that you had your stories on WWF. You had Austin McMahon. You had Austin chasing the championship to finally get it and everything. Austin was the guy that Austin was going in there and running through people in a different manner, that he was just going in and brawling with everybody. But Goldberg was literally making quick work of everybody. So it was something different to see that you got that whole year and a half or so of the NWO with Sting chasing them. And in the same time, in the under, you got, oh my goodness, this dude's reached 20 wins. He's got 40 wins. He's got 60 wins. He's U.S. champion. He's got 80 wins. Oh my goodness, he's the world champion at 100-something wins. So for as much slack as they get, that was one of the best things that they ever, arguably with their best storyline that they did, other than the NWO, was really the entire streak of Goldberg.
Corey, if you go back, and to your point, you go back and look at 97, 98, the only people that weren't on top in WCW that weren't with that company is Austin. Sting, the NWO, and Goldberg, and Bret the Hitman Hart are all properties of WCW. That's like, it's insane. The meteoric rise and then the fall of WCW is wild from 97 to 99.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So with staying in line with what Goldberg was doing, was something that Juice mentioned, and I want to get into that. And I've got it, I was jotting things down while watching this, and I always have asked this, even from back then, even at 14, I'm looking, big bold letters. Why wasn't this on pay-per-view? I remember when this was announced on Thunder, 72 hours or so before the match happened, and I'm looking at it, and you're like, whoa, we're getting Goldberg and even then, you knew Goldberg was winning the championship. I mean, I know we say this in hindsight, but that's something that you could kind of see the writing on the wall.
You talking about the Georgia Dome?
Yes.
Okay.
There was no way. Even then, I'm saying to myself, there's no way Goldberg's not winning the championship.
And you're talking Hogan Goldberg, not the Fingerpoke.
Hogan Goldberg. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Hogan Goldberg. Yeah. So with Goldberg, getting that match, do you all think, in our older, wiser age, why wasn't this on pay-per-view? Drew, I'm gonna throw it to you first.
I think that's an easy one. Eric didn't care about, which is a problem. Okay. Yeah. Eric didn't care about pay-per-view buy rates. Eric cared about beating Vince McMahon and Monday Night Raw on Raw. That also was something that Eric had and continued to have all the way through until they investigated him for embezzlement, which we'll talk about. Yes, but Eric wanted to put Vince McMahon out of business, and that is something, and he put WCW first. That's why Eric was so successful, because Eric wanted to destroy everything that got in his way. He wasn't just there to make money for himself. So Eric wanted that match on TV to pop a rating and beat Vince McMahon. That's the only reason.
Gotcha. Ellis, go for it.
So, Bischoff is why wasn't it on pay-per-view? Because Bischoff is an excellent employee. He's an excellent businessman, and this man decided to focus on his KPIs, as you should, in your performance appraisal. And all of you listening, if you have corporate jobs, you have 9 to 5 or whatever, and you have a quarterly review or an annual review to get your money, you need to have KPIs. And your whole year should be focused on hitting those KPIs. And that's what that motherfucker did. So guess what? If it didn't hit, if it wasn't on pay review, he didn't care because he was focused on getting those KPIs. Even the guy who was on the Turner side said, "I don't know why it wasn't on there, bitch, because you weren't doing his appraisal." Fucking Ted Turner was doing his appraisal, and he fucking do the metrics, and he fucking did he did his job. So at the end of the day, we can say whatever we want. This bitch got he had his money, he had his job. This motherfucker was getting raises. We even talking about how much money that man made. You're talking about else. This motherfucker made money because he did his job right. He does his job. So again, to me, that's the reason why he was focused on his KPIs, not the industry as a whole.
Ellis, can you just quickly tell people what KPIs are? Because there might be a segment of our audience who have no idea what you're talking about.
No. So this is what I need you guys to do. I need you to go take a business 101 course. You could probably go on LinkedIn Learning. You can probably go on some kind of certified learning website. If you go to Google and type in "How do I learn about business for free," that should help you get an answer to what a KPI. Even if you want to type in "What is a KPI," help define that shit for me. Google can fucking do it for you.
They definitely can.
Key performance indicators.
There you go. There you go. Well, a lot of people, you got to remember, Ellis, a lot of people just watch the wrestling for the wrestling. You have a great business mind for that stuff. So I think it's important that you
go ahead and get that Business 100 Business 100 class going for free. I'll put a link in the comments on when this is posted, so you can get a free course on business. Bitches.
Unbelievable. Juice, you originally brought it up earlier when you were talking about it. It should have been on pay-per-view. Go for it, man.
Yeah. I mean, we've been discussing this throughout the first couple of episodes here, but Ted Turner loved WCW. Ted Turner said, "Hey, what can we do to compete with Vince? 2 hours on Monday night." He gave him the Thunder Show. TV was what Ted Turner did. So Eric Bischoff, by proxy, wanted to beat Vince McMahon. He could do that easily by doing it on TV and beating the other competitor. And I feel like he wanted to strike while the iron was hot. And it just pisses me off that, sure, you could do this match on pay-per-view or on TV and have a great moment. And it was amazing. I get chills every time he lifts him up for the jackhammer and the whole thing. Like, it's an amazing moment. Why can't you have that and have like a return match some other time down the line? That, I think, is one of the key components as to who killed WCW. The creative could never just like follow through. They had so many moments, and then that was it. Like, nothing. What was next? Who's next? Nothing. Nothing happened.
Ellis, you got a rebuttal? I see you shaking your head over there. What's going on?
Who cares about what's next? Okay, with the story with Goldberg. Okay, Goldberg got the belt. Go ahead. Everyone just be happy. Okay, we'll sell some more. Are we selling more T-shirts? Are we selling more tickets?
Yeah, they said that in the show.
Next story. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, I know. He'd rather go against Kurt Hennig at Bash of the Beach while the main event was Rodman and Malone selling the whole thing out. Like, they didn't care about the world title, even though it made him the biggest TV match of all time.
Who is the Turner executive that was on this? I forget his name. I'm drawing a blank here.
Brad Siegel.
Brad Siegel. There you go. Brad Siegel said, "We saw Bill and saw $1 billion, and we wanted him pushed to the moon, and we wanted to put him on T-shirts and credit cards and all this other stuff." So, yeah, I mean, this is again, to your question, you don't have to do this on Nitro, but they still sold 40,000 tickets for a Monday night. Again, wrestling attendance numbers are always inflated. They count the janitors, the popcorn guys. They probably count the people who are working. I get it, but you're still selling a shit ton of tickets and a crap load of merch. And Bill rejuvenated WCW. Just my opinion.
Yeah. No, you're right. No. And so with that rejuvenation, you've got WWE or WWF on the other end, and you got Rock, who's, one of the executive producers on this show. He's talking about how he was still on the upper card at that time, and how he was, which I don't know how true, but it's Rock's. I'm not in the locker room clearly, but he's talking about how, he watched it, he had his matches, and he was able to be out of the building in time to be back at his hotel and watching Nitro. I don't know, but maybe. But he said he was talking about how he would watch and he would try to get what they were doing to maybe try to understand what they could do on their end to get where they were. And so with that, they talk about how the WWF's answer to the NWO was the Attitude Era. And so you start getting that, and they're building momentum. And Eric talks about how, we're still good, but WWE's getting better week by week. They're getting better. And so Eric talks about how in July of '98, he talked to a couple people, and they were telling him how he was going to go in, and he went and talked to the executives, and they were telling him how WCW was going to be run, and how they were going to switch the demographic to more kid-friendly, more family-oriented. And Eric's got so much on his plate, and here's the next talking point we're going to hit, guys. He says Kevin Nash comes in and talks to him and says, hey, let me take the booking off your hands. As Kevin Nash said, to help him out. Drew, I'll go to you first again. Kevin Nash becoming the booker. What'd you think of that? Hearing that story of how it came about.
This is part of the reason that WCW died. Not the fact that Nash took the book. It's because Eric Bischoff decided to pass the book. And what that did was seal Eric's fate, in my opinion, because what shortly happened after this, well, I think it was like maybe a year or 8 to 12 months, is Russo was brought in, and Russo was not the talent they thought that Vince was. But passing the book to Kevin, although I understood it, I understand that Kevin wanted to help. Eric should have never relinquished this, because we got some of the worst television and booking decisions in WCW history when Kevin took over the book. Now, I have an immense amount of respect for Kevin. Kevin knows the business way better than me or anybody else on this show does. But what happens is when you're in, and Kevin says this, when you're in that situation and you're a talent holding the book, it's a big problem.
Juice, go for it. What you think, Kevin Nash?
Yeah, they always say, like, the quote is the inmates running the asylum. And I mean, when you're running the asylum and you are also getting paid and you also can create whatever you want, if you're Kevin Nash, why wouldn't you do that? I agree with Drew, though. Like, if Bischoff just doesn't do that, even if he just asks help or, again, collaborates or does a little bit more, maybe there's a little bit extra that could have helped WCW along the way. So many times throughout these first two episodes, it's all about, and I've heard about this and I've talked about this so many times, WCW was great with the undercards on their pay-per-views. They did immense jobs, like amazing matches. Even the storylines were great on the undercard. When you get to the main event, it was always run-in, DQ, dusty finish, bullshit finish, or someone wins the title, the next night they get it taken away. Nothing ever seemed consistent enough to even get a month out of it.
Why do you think that is, Juice? I want to ask you, why do you think that was?
I just think that too many cooks in the kitchen, even with one cook doing it. Like, if Nash is there doing it, but he's hearing from his buddies, hey, what about this idea? What was he going to say? I'm not going to help my friends out? Like, he wants to do it and help the business, but you said it. He's getting paid. Why not help yourself too? Keep yourself over.
The reason I think that this killed WCW was part of it is because Eric cared about WCW. He wanted to put WWF and Vince McMahon out of business. Kevin Nash didn't have that killer mentality when he got the book. Kevin wanted to make money, win championships, and keep his status high, which I respect. But you can't sit back and tell me that Eric leaving the pencil to Kevin was a good decision. Eric, after this, became so enamored and focused on becoming an on-screen character when he should have just did what made WCW so successful in 96, 97, and even 98 was booking. Eric was a fantastic decision maker. He was a fantastic businessman. He got too concerned with becoming a star, in my opinion, because he took on Ric Flair 65,000 times and becoming an on-screen character, and he shouldn't have.
So I'll throw this in there too with that. And this is all hindsight because, you know, at our younger age, we don't even know any of this stuff for the most part. But looking back at it now, you all have touched on it, and I'll just go on that same point. It just feels like there's zero that's going to be good out of somebody who is your peer, who is still your peer in the sense of they're a talent just like you are. They are now determining your future as far as what you're perceived at as an on-screen character. It just seems like it was never going to be a recipe for anything but disaster from the start. And that's just always how I felt about that, hearing about it later on. And it's not a knock on what he, you know, him getting it or what he was, but it just feels like, I don't care who it was. And even then, because Kevin Sullivan, I believe, was a booker at the time too and a talent. And it never feels like it's a good thing when somebody who is your equal, who is not clearly defined as your supervisor from the beginning when you come in, is now determining your outcome on television. So,
and I will add this to your point, Corey. Throughout the history of WCW, there have been numerous issues like this. You know, Dusty Rhodes had a say in the booking, and then Dustin got involved, and it was like, well, is this nepotism? What's going on? Same with Bill Watts and Eric Watts. Who deserves it? Why is this happening? Whenever Kevin Sullivan first kind of gets involved with the booking decisions in late 94, early 95, when Hogan first comes in, there's the Dungeon of Doom. Who can we get to feed to Hulk Hogan? Even that, as bad as that, you know, looks and was over the course of that year and a half, those decisions only kept Hogan on top, and it made money as Hogan being a babyface, and it didn't muddy the product as much as Kevin Nash being booker and who knows what kind of shenanigans we're going to get involved with. No continuity week to week. I'm not saying that the Dungeon of Doom turned everybody into a millionaire.
Shit stunk, Juice.
I saw his eyebrow and I'm like, oh, here's his eyebrow.
I'm in full agreement with you, Drew.
Let me put myself in the main event with Hulk Hogan. Kevin Sullivan and Hulk Hogan. I have an immense amount of respect for Kevin Sullivan. Give me a break.
But Kevin Sullivan never put himself with Hulk Hogan. It was everybody else in the group that was created. It was a creation with other guys to go against him, leading up to the Giant, which was someone that finally took the title away from him. And we discussed that last week with how it turned him darker for a little bit. And then that kind of was the first black and white Hogan. You know, we didn't really see that yet. But all I was getting at is the point is, throughout WWE's history, there were plenty of wrestlers that were given the pencil. And for one way or the other, it just never seemed to click as well as maybe when it was just Bischoff asking around for ideas instead of just giving it to the guys that were in the ring.
No. Go ahead, Drew.
I think Eric could have let Kevin write Thunder. There's your solution. You want to take some of the stuff off your plate? Delegate.
And Kevin Sullivan's a smart guy. No question about it.
He gave everything to Kevin Nash. And Nash kept himself on top. Smart man. Smart businessman.
Why wouldn't you? Of course. Don't blame him.
Ellis, did you have a rebuttal? I saw you shaking your head. I just wanted to make sure.
These two are super uber passionate. I'm going to just touch on different notes. The Rock is a bitch. Listen, okay. This motherfucker comes on the screen and says, "Hey, so they're red hot, right? WCW's red hot, and I'm asking, what can we do to be like them?" Bitch, no, you were not. Bitch, no, you were not. You were trying to keep your motherfucking job.
You think that's
even, Brad, it's a lie. It's a lie. That's like saying Hulk Hogan discovered Kurt Angle. listen, all this is trash. It's all trash. It doesn't make any sense. I'm tired of seeing The Rock in this documentary. I think that of all things, all the stories we're being told by The Rock, I was watching the product and I got home on time and I got back to the hotel and I just turned on night. No, stop.
He even put the clip of Survivor Series 96 in the documentary. I thought this was about WCW.
To Rock's point, though, Raw was taped. So Rock could have done a house show and got back to watch Nitro. I'm just saying. I do think that it's a revisionist history. I think Ellis is spot on, but I will say that I know that there are many different wrestler, that they talk about, that they had the Nitro on the television in the back watching and all that other stuff. But Raw was taped in advance.
Yeah,
so they could have watched
sometimes.
it. They could have. Yeah,
don't tell me that.
The Nitro guys would have watched that.
Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. Okay. I want you guys to really tell me when The Rock was struggling or when The Rock was eating, this man was talking about the foundation of the business. This man only talked about the foundation of the business when he got to arc The Rock again. I am telling you the truth. This whole thing is a facade. He's now the wrestling historian god because now he owns the Rock name. He's now on the TKO board. You know what? Yeah, I don't care. I'm saying this shit the fucking truth. You want to say I'm lying? Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong, guys. This man was carrying bags. He was getting coffee for Farouk. He was
98.
Bro, I don't know what he was doing 98. I got stuff I'm doing, man. You know what I'm saying? The point is, he's not sitting back doing this.
He borrowed a lot of shit from a lot of people, though, Ellis.
How do I fix that? How do we fix that, Vince? Vince is like, sit your motherfucking ass down. Raise your eyebrow. Get your fucking ass back in the ring. He ain't doing all that stuff. I get it, guys. We're trying to save ourselves and make sure no one comes after us. Vice TV, whatever. Understand this. I'm telling you the truth. That's what The Rock was doing, okay? Smelling what he was cooking and catering.
I'm not disagreeing. I just think that The Rock borrowed a lot of stuff, just like a lot of boys and girls from wrestling borrowed a lot of stuff from a lot of people. And don't get me wrong, The Rock saying that WWF's answer to the NWO was the Attitude Era. No, that was the answer to declining ratings and Vince realizing what was selling in the 90s. And he went completely in a different direction. And that's what another part that killed WCW. WWF changed with pop culture, and WCW had the handcuffs of Time Warner saying, we want to be kid friendly. It didn't work in 91, 92, 93. Why is it going to work when we're in the rebellious stages of the late 90s?
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. And that's the thing, is that you're looking at that time, the societal norms where, it was, people were, as a society, flipping off their boss and, going against this stuff was regular, and Vince was the one that was able to adapt to it.
I don't know about you. My dad was not flipping off his boss. I'll tell you that.
No, I don't think that was happening.
I'm just messing with you, Corey. I'm just messing with you. I mean you had South Park, you had Howard Stern. You're right.
Yes,
you're right.
That's what. Right. Yes. No, absolutely. So and once again, I want to make sure I throw this out there. We appreciate everybody tuning in and listening. We're doing this every week for all the episodes of WCW or Who Killed WCW. So we really appreciate y'all that, like I said, tuned in last week, you're back this week, or if you're new this week, we really, really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Goldberg talks about how they brought up a piece of the match he had with Scott Hall before he got to the World Championship match. Mm-hmm. And he talks about how he messed up, a sequence in the match. And Scott Hall's like, well, what are you doing? And Goldberg's like, I don't know. And I thought it was
bro, what are you doing, bro? You can see Scott say that when he's laying on the canvas.
Yeah.
And then they're just staring at each other like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, right.
And you see, and it was I will give Goldberg credit for this, that he was able to be transparent about that moment and admit he's pretty much a deer in the headlights at that point, and he doesn't know what's going on, and they have to regroup. And so with that, they go on and he has that match. He wins the world title. He's going on, and you hear Kevin Nash talk about how they kind of go back and forth, but it all ties into where they're saying this guy can't be the world champion. Like, not when you're still green, you don't know what you're doing, you're hurting people. They're to the point now that they're saying you can't be the world champion. They're ready to get it off of him. So they get to the point of taking the championship off of him at Starrcade 98, in which we can touch on for a second. They get to Starrcade 98, and Kevin Sullivan is saying, hey, you know, Goldberg should probably lose the same way he's been beating everybody else. Clean, 1, 2, 3, middle of the ring. But they have other plans. And I'll go first on this one, and I'll go around the room. And as Juice brought up on X, I did attend this Starrcade as well, you know, with its, you know, permanent residency at this point being in Washington, D.C. This Starrcade, this one was much different than 97, going from 97 to 98. 97, you could feel it was the big match feel. It was leading up to Sting. It was leading up to Sting and Hogan, that is. You knew where this was going. You were looking for the payoff. This year, business is booming. The undercard was really topsy-turvy mismatch with this. I implore people who are listening to us, if you get time, go back to watch Starrcade 98. Not necessarily me recommending it as, oh, it's such a great show, but to really analyze that show and to see how they were trying to get this person, that person, we had to get this type of match on there, that type of match on there, seeing the different avenues and roads they were going in the show just to get to the main event. And you get to the main event, you get to Kevin Nash versus Goldberg. They bring in Disco Inferno, which I get at that time. Hear me out. The story was Disco was trying to get into to be accepted in the Wolfpack, in the NW, almost like loose comparison, almost like what JD McDonough was doing, trying to get into good graces of Judgment Day.
Why are we talking about Disco? Come on with this guy.
Because he's a part of them.
It was relevant at that. It was relevant at that point.
You're right, but I mean, Goldberg won the title at the Georgia Dome from Hogan, which was Hogan's decision. Before we got to Starrcade 98, Goldberg winning the title at the Georgia Dome was Hulk Hogan's goddamn decision. But I digress. Go ahead.
So
whose decision was it to put Disco in the NWO?
Who gives a shit?
Well, what I'm saying is Hogan's involved with the decision to have a match at the Georgia Dome, but when it comes to having Disco Inferno being a part of the finish of Goldberg losing the title at Starrcade in the main event, no one has an idea. Why is he there?
I'm sure Disco got all the boys into like a strip club for free, and then that's why they're like, throw him in the main event. What I'm saying to you guys is that we can't forget that after Goldberg's reign, right? You know, he beats all these people. We get to the Georgia Dome and Hulk Hogan, and he has that bad match with Scott Hall. You're right. We just touched on it. They then put him over. Goldberg wins the World Heavyweight Championship from Hulk Hogan at the Georgia Dome, and it was Hogan's decision. Now we're at Starrcade 98, and they take the championship off of him for what? To put the title back on Hulk Hogan.
So we're about to get to that right now. So I have no voice at this point in the arena, and I see Scott. That was the one thing you could spot Scott Hall like literally like a sore thumb in that group of security guards running down there. And I'm like, he gets on there, and you hear the wackiest toy gun type sound because you could hear it in the arena. You hear the taser. And I'm like, it's almost like they had a microphone on that too. And I'm like, did he just shock him like the Mountie? Like, that's the first thing I'm thinking of. Yeah, and I'm like,
man, I love it.
And mind you, we're looking at Goldberg getting pinned, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, is he kicking out? Because he's doing this horrible job at twitching.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is he kicking out? So
you can't fake being electrocuted. I mean, listen, I think I was 13, 14 at the time. I was like, holy shit, this guy just got electrocuted. I wasn't like, man, that didn't sound like a real, taser. I didn't know what the hell a taser sounded like at that point. I mean, we grew up on Long Island. People weren't getting tased left and right in my neighborhood. So
it still sounded like the old shock stick from the Mountie.
Well, I get that, but I mean, I've never encountered a taser at that point in my life. So when it went off, I wasn't like,
challenge accepted.
Like yeah, right. I go find me a taser and tase somebody. I didn't harp on as a 13-year-old, but I see your point.
Looking back at it now, it kind of looks like he might have, is he gonna maybe kick out? Like, I don't know. It is funny how you bring that up, Corey. I've thought about that so many times watching that finish, because he twitches and almost gets out of the pin.
Yeah, he almost oversold his thing and kicked out. We'd have had 97 all over again with Sting, instead of Sting supposed to kick out and he didn't. You'd have had Goldberg kicking out when he shouldn't have. So, okay. See, thank you, Blake. I appreciate you always inputting. You're great.
I did not say and I said on, but we digress. Go ahead.
January 4th, 1999, fellas. There are two shows on that night. You have Monday Night Raw, and you have in Drew's word, Monday Night Nitro, which is what it's not.
Hell yeah, Corey. Hell yeah, Corey. Hell yeah.
What a show.
Hell yeah. Monday Night
Great
Nitro.
marketing.
Raw is taped and SmackDown is live. Raw is taped, I think like December 27th or 20, whatever week before January 4th was. They taped it. January 4th is live. The week before that, Kevin Nash says, Goldberg, I'm going to try to right the wrongs of Starrcade, and you're going to get a rematch for the World Championship. So we have, in that same Nitro, the story which isn't told on the documentary. Goldberg is accused of some kind of harassment or something of Elizabeth. Goldberg's taken to jail. And he is, as far as they know, he's going to miss his world title match. He's in danger of it. More than likely, he's going to miss it. Hogan steps up as the challenger, and Kevin Nash accepts. So now the main event, instead of being Goldberg versus Kevin Nash in the Georgia Dome for the WCW Championship, it's Kevin Nash versus Hollywood Hulk Hogan, who at this point was kind of on this pseudo-presidential run, campaign, but really he's talking about retiring, and Hulk Hogan is now the challenger for the World Championship.
Meanwhile, he's signed till 2001.
Yeah, and we digress. So Hulk Hogan at that point is the challenger now. We get to where, during the show, they're building towards this main event. Eric Bischoff, and this is as famous as you can get now with this story. Eric Bischoff gives the directive. Tony Schiavone gets on. He says, over on the other show, a guy named, the guy Mick Foley, who used to wrestle here as Cactus Jack, is going to win their world title. That's going to put some butts in the seats. And they talk about how, what was it, somewhere between 400, 600,000, somewhere around there, of people tuning in to Nitro go to Monday Night Raw to watch Mick Foley win the championship.
Yeah, it was 800,000. I looked it up today.
Yeah, that is. Do you know how many channel clicks that is? Like, really, like, to go to the other side. So you get that now, and the answer to that, and I know they have their stuff planned out, guys, but the answer to that, and they went through with it, is the finger poke of doom. Now, they say on the show that a lot of people do go back to say that's the genesis of the end of WCW. Kevin Nash talks about how people are just mad because they didn't see it coming. I'm going to start with you, Ellis. What do you think of that? The whole situation of that January 4th, 1999 day for professional wrestling as a whole.
I mean, people like Mick Foley. I mean, shit. I don't know, man. I mean, dude. I mean, I wanted to know what was going on, so we switched. And finger poke of doom. You know what? Real talk. Yeah, People didn't see it coming, so they cry and they bitch about it. And then they get older, they future book. And then they get older, and then they have YouTube shows. And then I'm just kidding. But it's dude, it just happened. He's right. They're mad because they didn't see the finish, and it was a shocking moment on TV. Why would this happen? And to be real, if you look, I mean, at least from my opinion, when I watched WCW at that time, it was like watching a window into the reality of wrestling versus me turning to WWE and watching a window into someone's living room watching soap opera. That was a soap opera to me. When I was watching WCW, it felt like I was watching a window into someone else's business. So for me, I get it. Like you talking about, hey, you should have been fired. You should be. I say that they're being transparent, a little bit too transparent about their show and their life. I'm like, bro, maybe this is part of the show. I don't know. And the people getting upset now for 25 years later. Oh my God, that finish was horrible, bro. Did you watch the whole? Bro, I didn't even know that there was a problem because I was watching their product and I was like, dude, this is how they do things. This is how they talk to each other. I don't know. So, all right, guys, now destroy it. Go for it.
Did you call him?
I'm sorry, Juice. Go for it, man. Sorry.
I read your lips and I was like, I think you said
Juice is ready, boy. He's like, all right. He's like, is it me? Is it me? Is it me?
I've been waiting for this since I was 3 years old.
That's right. Hey, that's right. But you know, I kind of agree with Nash where he's like, everybody was upset that they got worked, for lack of a better term. And I can agree with that. But back to the point we've been discussing this entire show is the creative. I have no problem with a finger poke of doom and doing that. It was a fun. It's funny. It is funny. It's entertaining when it actually happened. Of course, 40,000 in the Georgia Dome probably thought they were going to see their hero conquer once again, like they did, 6 months prior. But you can't just do the same thing every time. So I do commend them for trying something different. My issue is Goldberg, the Golden Goose, the guy who they had and ascended to these ranks, who only had maybe 2 or 3 actual world title matches during his reign. I mean, I could count them. The Kurt Hennig match, the match against Kevin Nash, and then the match against DDP were the only ones on pay-per-view that actually defended the title. After this finger poke of doom where, Goldberg is a part of the storyline, whether he's in the match or not, the match he gets at Sold Out the following pay-per-view is a ladder match for the stun gun against Scott Hall. It has nothing to do with the world title or anything. And in fact, he never really gets back to that level of where he was in prestige before. Mm-hmm. His biggest match, I think, after that even was like his rematch with Nash, Spring Stampede '99. But there was no title on the line, and it was what it was. So I don't know. It's just January 4th didn't kill WCW, but it did not help when they couldn't. We've been saying, Ellis says it doesn't matter what they do next, but they had nothing. They just come up with whatever they want.
Finger poke of doom did not kill WCW. Sorry, Corey, go ahead.
No. It's amazing how that the world title, Goldberg, the streak, everything that went into Goldberg being in the world title picture, effectively from the finger poke of doom on, he was pretty much gone. Ric Flair moved into the title picture pretty much after that. Ric Flair, Randy Savage, DDP eventually. Like, Goldberg wasn't even in the mixing, but I think actually that Spring Stampede '99 when DDP won the title, I think Savage was the ref, but who was it? Hogan, DDP, Sting, and Flair, right?
Yep. Where's Goldberg? In the rematch from a event 5 months previous.
Right, with no title on the line.
Nope.
Yeah.
Like,
the finger poke of doom did not kill WCW. The whole show was very well written if you go back and actually watch it. There was drama, there was intrigue, Hogan, then they all swerved you, right? No problem. They did nothing to follow up after this at all. Goldberg was never back to where he was. They fed him Bam Bam Bigelow and Scott Hall and everybody else to try and get him back or get him less greener than what he was, and it was a giant mistake. People wanted to see Bill snort, kick, fireworks, jackhammer, spear out the fucking door. They didn't care about anything else. And yeah, to Ellis's point before, Goldberg was actually running through people. I had no idea either, because when I saw it, I was like, well, you know, I was told that wrestling was a work in 1996, unfortunately for me. So it was ruined very early for my childhood. But because my dad was like, you know, they're not really punch each other. I was like, thanks, Dad. But anyways, you know, I mean, I thought that Goldberg was hurting, you know, hitting people hard. I didn't know he was actually hurting people. But here's what killed WCW. There were two major things. One, let's talk about this. Kevin Nash is given the book, and who's the first person he puts the championship on besides himself? Hulk Hogan. Why is that? Because Hulk Hogan's got creative control. So if Hulk says, I don't want to drop the title back to Bill, Kevin's going to go, well, Bill, Hogan doesn't want to do business with you right now. Why is that? After Hulk Hogan put over Bill Goldberg in the Georgia Dome, brother, because Hogan saw what Bill was and Bill could be. But then Bill became a little too much for Hulk, because Hulk's spot was getting taken, brother, and nobody takes the Hulkster's spot. So what happened? They push Bill down the card, right? And that's what happens. They have no creative going forward for Bill, and they go into a program with Hogan and Flair. And you want to know what happened after they did this program?
Never saw that match before.
Gone. The ratings gone. The attendance gone. The ticket sales gone. The death of WCW. You want to look at it? Eric hands the pencil over to Kevin Nash. They put the title back on the one guy who has creative control, and they bring in Vince Russo, who wasn't worth his ass writing-wise, it seems, because he had a good buffer in Vince McMahon. That's what killed WCW.
Ellis, go, because I see you fuming. Go.
So I'm going to tell you this, okay? I hear you talking about. I feel like this is the wrestling fan explaining what killed WCW. I'm going to tell you what killed WCW. You're no longer engaged manager. Not the fact that the person who he hands the pen to, who again he could easily have taken it back, but the moment that the moment you take a person who is working their butt off for you, and you challenge their ethics, you challenge who they are as a being, and you investigate them, you're now saying you have to accept the fact that you no longer have that employee. WCW died the very moment they cared to inform Eric Bischoff that he was under investigation. And guess what? You're cleared from it. Let me tell you something. You can look at my resume. You can ask anyone else. The moment you challenge my fucking anything, there was one time someone challenged it. They challenged it to my bosses. My bosses were like, "You're fucking crazy. You don't know this guy." They told me what I fucking told them. What the fuck do you think he's saying? And my wife yells, "Fucking quit."
No, you're.
They know the
right.
moment you do that shit to any person who is putting not just their 9 to 5, but their 24/7, their entire lives, their entire families above, and putting that in front of putting all that behind the business. Say, forget my personal life. I'm putting all my effort into the business, and now you're going to investigate them. Not even saying, guess what? The person I've been working for all this whole time didn't defend me. I just want to let you guys know. You can say whatever you want to say. Creative. You can say Kevin Nash. You can say whatever the fuck you want. The moment you investigate an employee who is doing their fucking everything, 1,000%, you're fucked.
Yeah,
they're going to fuck you. They're going to close their eyes. They're going to sleep now.
You're 100% right. And I know you probably didn't see my tweet, but I put that out during the show. I said, when you announced to the world and told Eric Bischoff that you were investigating him for embezzlement, you ripped the guts out of WCW. And that's what they did, because Eric was Mr. WCW and was willing to die on that television show for the brand. And when you said to him, we believe you're stealing money from your signings and taking it and all that other stuff, it killed WCW. That was another major factor. You're 100% right. And I said that during the show. 100%.
He checked out at that point. At that point, he didn't care. And once again, just throwing this out there again, appreciate everybody listening and watching this. You all mean the world to us for doing that. Like, we can only do it as much as you all watch. So we appreciate it. The last point I want to get into before we wrap up, guys, and because this has been a great show, I want to make sure we get into what you all were just talking about with Eric gets that news. And so at that point, he's like, he's kind of doesn't care. And he notices that as things are progressing, there are people, higher ups and everything. He goes into these meetings and he sees how debts being moved over from one place into maybe WCW books, and WCW's profits are being moved over to cover other debts because, and people were jealous of the time slots WCW were getting because they were being successful in these time slots. And so this stuff happens to make WCW kind of look bad, with some of the losses being put over this side and everything. And Eric at this point is completely checking out. And he's talking about how that's when he brought up the investigation, and rightfully so. I agree with y'all 100%. If somebody tells me where I'm working at and I'm doing nothing but everything for this company, and then you tell me, oh yeah, well, you didn't know, we had an investigation about you because you thought we were embezzling money and taking kickbacks.
We think you're stealing from us.
Yeah, but you're doing a great job, and we didn't want to tell you, but they tried to aha him. That's pretty much what they tried to do.
And then they fired him.
Yes.
For Vince Russo. They thought,
that's what I was getting to. Yep.
Eric's not writing television anymore. He's basically becoming a performer, and we're going to go hire WWF's Golden Goose. And little did they know, Vince McMahon was the buffer between Vince Russo and WWF television.
Yep.
Bro.
Yep. Go ahead, Juice. Go ahead.
No, just exactly what it is, and I'm sure we'll get into that next week with the next episode. They showed Bash at the Beach 2000, what Vince Russo is getting involved with. My last little point here: it's been great with all you guys. This show has been fantastic. I love chatting WCW with you. Bischoff gets canned right before Fall Brawl '99. We get Sting turning heel, which is bizarre, even though there was a pop when it happened. And then Halloween Havoc is a lot of BS. If you watch that show with a laydown with Hogan and Sting, and then the first show Russo gets is the tournament Mayhem '99. It's all right, but it all goes downhill from there.
Doesn't he put the championship on a dude who's out the door in a couple days or weeks?
You mean the man who shall not be named?
Right,
yes.
but didn't
so that was sold out 2000.
Okay, but I mean,
January.
He's in the finals. He was in the finals against.
He was in the finals against Bret in Mayhem '99, but that was November. By the time we got to
right, but Bret won the championship, and then he who not be named won the championship in December.
Sold
correct?
out. January. It sold out against Sid Vicious.
And then he's on WWF television.
Two weeks later,
he's gone.
Vince Russo's a genius. I digress.
And in the midst of all that, Starrcade '99. This is a theme here. Once again, I was in the building for that. Goldberg says to Bret, "Watch for the kick." Bret saying, "What does that even mean?"
All like a millisecond. Like all happened in like 2 seconds.
Yes. Effectively, Bret Hart career ends.
Right. You're all smart men here, right? I'm not defending. I'm a Bret Hart guy. But if somebody says, "Watch for the kick," and Bret goes, "What does that even mean?" I'm going to look for the kick. I'm going to look for the kick, right?
Wait. He said that before he does it. So he says it. They do a reversal thingy, and then he hits the rope. Then he gets kicked in the face. I get where the confusion can come from, right? But damn it! Again, I was like, like the moment you do the reverse, because again, I don't know. I'm not a wrestler. I don't fucking know. But guess what? When you telling me, hey, I know people have said reverse to something, or they'll give some kind of cue. You think you're gonna say. Watch for the kick, and you get reversed. Bitch, what are you talking about? I'm confused. Okay, I'm just letting you know. So I'm just.
You thought it was confusing,
bruh. First of all, I'm not a wrestler, so I don't fucking know.
I know that.
I'm fucking playing the street and stomp you out. So it's that simple. But I just want to say this: the fact that Goldberg said, "Bitch, what the fuck do you want me to do? I've apologized 86,000 times. Motherfucker, what do you want me to do? I'm tired." The Bret's like, "Bitch, I want to call you bitch for life. No matter where I get a chance to, motherfucker, I'm going to call you some shit."
And that's what he does. But I mean, Ellis, let me ask you, if me and you are in a staged fight, and I tell you, watch for the kick, we're not wrestlers. watch the kick. I send you into the ropes. Are you going to be looking for me to kick my leg? No.
If you reverse me, if you reverse me, if you reverse me, I'm not sure what the fuck's happening. If you watch it, it's like a little thing. Even Taker's like, with something, or hit your finisher.
Yeah.
Like, he's not asking for you to do multiple things. This dude said he made a call, did something else. Then he said, "Yeah, I get it. You kicked me in the fucking head, but guess what? Bret, you should have got a knife. You should have stabbed this bitch in the fucking ring. That's it. You should have rolled out the fucking ring, stabbed him. I'm just letting you know, this motherfucker is disrespectful. He said that.
Yeah.
And guess what? I don't know what you want me to say anymore. Well, guess what? You should have stabbed him, Bret.
My biggest thing was that I don't think. Yeah, I mean, you could have stabbed him. That it was ECW. They would have stabbed him. But anyway, I don't think Bret. It wouldn't have mattered if Bret put his hands up or his whole body up. Bret was
tried to put his hand up.
No, and that's what I'm saying. Goldberg was kicking Bret his fucking teeth in. That's what was happening. It didn't matter. Goldberg was like, watch for the kick, bang, goodbye. It didn't matter.
That's what I was getting at. It happened so quick. Like I give Bret a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because Goldberg was a wild card. And the fact that, Ellis had a point there. If Goldberg says watch for the kick and the first thing he does after that is throw you in the ropes after a reversal, maybe you're thinking, oh, he's not doing the kick, or what type of kick should I be looking for? In that time frame, the kick is already on its way, and there's nothing he could do about it.
Goldberg was doing the Sweet Chin music. They were trying to go back to 96. That's what was happening.
Oh, yeah. He was watching Shawn Michaels tapes.
This was a lot of fun. This was a lot of fun.
Yes. Listen, I'm going to close it out before I hand it to you, Drew, to completely close it out. Eric Bischoff, September 10th, 1999, in that time frame, he gets his call. He gets his walking papers. And it's so poetic, which they're going to get into on the next episode, I think, that all of a sudden he gets called back after Vince Russo is brought in, and things start to go a little bit of a different way. And Vince Russo is talking about how, listen, brother, we ain't doing this like this. It's time for, the new blood, pun intended, to start doing their thing. So listen to us next week. We'll be talking about that. Drew, you can take us home, man.
I think that's a great point, Corey, because the Who Killed WCW, 4-part miniseries has been fantastic. And what they have done each episode is hook you. And they showed Russo, and then it was like, dun, 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 and then we're out, right? Beautiful,
right.
Smart. Weekly episodic television. This miniseries gets you hooked. Again, I think the one thing about Russo that you bring this up, I think Russo was the only person to have the balls to tell Hulk Hogan to shut up and do your job. And unfortunately, that didn't work because Hulk had creative control. But I like the way Russo was just like, no, we are done. We're done with this crap because it's not working. And then we'll see what happens. Go ahead, Ellis.
Yep.
I was going to say, I bet you Russo would have stabbed Goldberg.
I think, dude, you know what's funny about Russo, Ellis, is that he put himself in all these matches too, like Bischoff. All of a sudden, he got the pencil, and then he's like in cage matches and world title matches,
winning the world title.
Yeah,
and he turned Goldberg heel at Great American Bash 2000. So, what are we doing?
Right. So 2 things that killed WCW, in my opinion. We'll get to a third on the 4th episode, but 2 of them. 1 is gutting Eric Bischoff, and 2 is taking the pencil away from Eric Bischoff and handing it to Nash and others. Just my thoughts. Any closing remarks before we get out of here, Ellis Juice?
My last closing remarks. Again, this is a great show. Love talking with all you guys. Corey, Drew, Ellis, you guys are fantastic. I wouldn't want to talk WCW with anybody else. And my last little point, even how sad it was for Bischoff to be canned, and even though he did come back, and in retrospect, I think he's very happy with how things have gone. I don't know how it would happen, but I would love to go fishing with Eric Bischoff in Wyoming. I don't know how that happens, but it looks so serene, and he just feels like, you know what, I'm out. I'm gonna go. He goes, I took my plane, I went to Wyoming, and that's that.
Dude,
he's
Eric,
happy with it.
I've been to Cody, Wyoming on vacation. It is beautiful. If you could ever get out to Wyoming, go. I've never fished with Eric Bischoff, but go. It is so peaceful. It's so beautiful. And from the times that I've met Eric, to your point, dude, Eric is so chilled and laid back. Like, all he wants to do is drink beer and hang out, truthfully. Ellis, before we get out of here?
My only real last remark is Bret screwed Bret. He should have had one of them blades and fucking took off his Achilles.
Just kick him in the head and slice and dice. Now Goldberg can't even wrestle. Done. Out. That's it. Oh, you kick me in the head? I slice your Achilles. That's how we do it down
The best there is, the best there was.
That's how we do it down in Calgary. You kick me in the head,
How
I
did it
take
get
your
so
Achilles.
brutal?
Yeah.
Man.
Ellis was an ECW guy, I could tell. He loved ECW.
No, I'm tired of him. Why is he crying? And why does Vince Russo carry himself so much tougher than Bret Hart? I need this man to stop this bullshit. I need the next time I see them at a fucking WrestleCon, I need Bret to say fuck it.
Ellis, don't get Bret going on Goldberg, bro. He'll talk for hours.
Wait, I want Bret to go too cold Scorpio on fucking Goldberg. Done. I want that motherfucker to make a shank and go for it at WrestleCon. That's it. Done.
I mean,
what Ellis do the shock face? Blake, I fucking hate your ass. Because
you
Blake.
get Bret going on Goldberg and WCW and Eric Bischoff. I mean, he held no punches back. I mean, he was just like idiots, morons, this, that. Let's get out of here. Corey, tell everybody where they can follow you and where they could hear and see you on Tuesdays.
Oh, yeah. My Kicks Are My Fix. That's my handle on IG, X. Talk wrestling belts, shoes, big sneaker collection. I went and bought shoes today. I'll probably wear them tomorrow. Probably throw a picture out there. I don't know. Tuesday, 6:35 on the Black Wrestling Podcast. I am on Turnbuckle Talk with Mimi and Justin, and we just go around and we talk wrestling and the weeks in, and we do everything. This is what I do every week. I enjoy it. I love talking wrestling with people who want to talk wrestling. So
there you go. Juice, did you get up to get a prop?
No.
All right,
I
go
already
ahead.
have my prop. No, I did get a prop. You should listen to the Juice Box every single Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere else you get your podcast. We get the Clash at the Castle predictions tomorrow. Here you go, Alice. There you go. Clash of the Castle predictions tomorrow with me and my great personal friend Josh Eisenberg. So check it all out. Otherwise, follow me on Twitter at Juicy Steen.
How's Josh doing now that the Mavericks are down 0-3? I know how Blake's doing, but how's Josh doing?
Oh man, I talked to him yesterday. And I was like, man, they got to win tonight. Like when we recorded, I was like, you got to win tonight, or otherwise it's not looking good. And they blew it. So he's probably not too good right now.
Shout out to Josh Eisenberg. Good luck to the Mavericks. Shout out to Blake Mitchmore. Good luck to the Mavericks. Ellis, go ahead.
Follow Final Bell Media. Don't follow me. I'm an asshole. That's it.
There it is.
There you go. There you go. I'm Andrew Baydala. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow to Final Bell Media. Make sure you hit that notification so that when we go live, you will be notified. Starcade, yeah, Juice, we love it. Starcade was the pay-per-view where a lot of people got their heads kicked in and some other stuff, but we're out of time. I'm Andrew Baydala. That's Ellis Emba. That is Corey Saunders. That's Juice Springsteen. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow. Again, make sure you follow all these gentlemen, including myself. I'm at Andrew Baydala. But again, hit that bell for notifications. Ellis looks like he's frozen. He's not. Hit that bell for notifications from Final Bell Media so that when we go live, you will know. Like, subscribe, and follow. I appreciate everybody. Corey, you did a great job, buddy.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Ellis, you're a gem. Never change.